You're live.
Good evening and welcome, everybody. This is a council budget workshop. Today is Wednesday, May 8th, and it's 5:15 PM. Around the table, we have Councillor Yakabaga, Councillor Fournier, Councillor Trimble, Councillor Dean, Councillor Fish, Councillor Schaefer. I am Council Chair Pelletier, and we are joined by Finance Director Little and Councillor Leonard. Welcome. Tonight, first on the agenda, we are looking at public health and community services.
And just before we get into them, I'd like to give the council a quick update on some discussions that I had with the business manager of the school department on the possible changes to the school budget that may be upcoming.
Okay,
Based on the review with the school budget, there was some items in the budget, namely some capital items that we were looking for alternate ways to possibly fund as opposed to being in their operating budget and impacting the taxpayer. So the recommendations that I made and the city manager made to the school department was they had $120,000 for a consultant that may or may not be needed. That's typically not something that we would budget for we may need it, so let's put in some money. So our recommendation was to take that out if it gets to the point where it's clear that the consultant is needed. We would look at funding it at that point. Probably my recommendation would be using the school fund balance to do that, depending on when in the school year, or savings if there was some available from other things. There was also $790,000, which were basically two capital projects. It was phase 2 of their STEM classrooms and a loading dock. We looked at various ways of trying to fund some of that with different money. There was just under $100,000 that is in a reserve on the city side in the capital fund which is a reserve for future construction school, similar to the reserve for future construction city that we're using for the projects at City Hall. If you use that it's $99,752, use that funding. That leaves about 690 or so that's left. And our recommendation was for half of that to be used out of the school's fund balance, and the other half would be funded out of the city's fund balance. The school has less opportunity to have a fund balance like on the city side. They're limited by state law as to what percentage they could be at. They're currently roughly at about 3.8%, the percent of their operating budget or of their budget. And under the state law coming up for fiscal year 25, the max is 5%. Using the 345 out of their fund balance would bring them down to around 3%, which is still decent. We didn't want to bring it down too low, but with the school department being a department of the city, there is still the security that if there's a really bad year and they need to tap into their fund balance, there's always the city side that could step in and cover expenses or continue with the school programs until whatever funding source that may have been an issue. If say the federal government delays funding, we can support them until that time. Standalone school districts may not have that opportunity, but ours does, so we don't necessarily need to have them at a 5% fund balance. So those were the recommendations that we made. Jerry is going to present that to the school board. It's not going to be on tonight's meeting because we didn't make the agenda in time. So it'll be on their next meeting, which is on the 22nd. If that is approved, they would get second reading on June 12th. So we'll know a little bit more after that first meeting on the 22nd as to whether or not they're receptive of that. But if that is accepted by the school board, that would reduce $910,000 out of the school budget, which is a direct change and lessens the impact on the Bangor taxpayer.
Councillor Fournier?
So what percentage of an increase? If they do.
If they do,
6%.
right, if they do, if nothing else changed except for that one thing and the city's budget stayed the same at the city manager's recommended, it's about a 20% drop on the mill rate. And it's about a 300, the impact to the taxpayers' tax bill would be about $375, which is around a 9.8% increase versus the 11.8 or so that is sitting right now. So it gets them under a 10% increase where they're close to, it's about a 12 now, driving down to about a 9.8, assuming everything else stayed the same.
But the school
The school would,
standalone, it was roughly 7%.
Exactly.
It would be coming down to what?
it would be coming, theirs would be coming down to, no, they're 5.2, yes. I wasn't sure which percentage you were thinking of.
Yeah,
but yes.
no, that, you covered them both.
So yeah, their particular one would be, let me just confirm that. Yes, they're sitting at a 6.9, it would bring down to 5.2.
Thank you for that update.
That was my exact question, so thank you.
Other questions or comments on that? So my question slash comment,
Mhm.
TBD. Is when will we discuss alternate funding sources for some of the other capital items that are in the city budget? So what I have in mind is the very necessary new equipment supply building for the firefighters.
Mhm.
And that I think we saw was around $2 million in the budget. Given where our fund balance is, are there alternate sources of funding that we might, since it's a one-time capital expense,
Mhm.
use that to offset the taxpayer? But that was a conversation we didn't have at the time, and I don't want to derail tonight because we have a lot. But I'm curious, when can we have conversations about that sort of,
In a couple of weeks, we will have an opportunity to do basically outstanding questions or other things, and we can do it at that time.
Okay.
And any other questions that the council may have in regards to some of the funding, the new programs, deciding whether or not those new programs should be put in or stay out. They're not in there now. So that will be coming up in a couple of weeks.
perfect. Thank you. All right, are we ready for public health and community service?
I am, if you are.
Thank you, we are.
So Public Health and Community Services, they have a decrease in their revenues. That is primarily related to a reduction in general assistance revenue that's anticipated. And that has been declining over the last couple of years, the use of the general assistance. And that's really the bulk of the changes. There's some small changes in the charges and others, which are clinic fees. But that is really just the general assistance amount. And the same thing on the expense side. The expense side has a decrease as well, but that's a corresponding decrease in the amount of general assistance that we've expended out. There are no new programs. There's no capital plan. There are priorities for the upcoming year. Continues to be housing needs and homelessness, continue and maintain the accreditation process, and then continue the efforts to assist elderly refugees and immigrants to the city.
Questions and comments? Councilor Leonard?
Did you want to go first, Rick? Okay, so this kind of ties into public transit, a little bit community connector, I'm sorry. But it states in one of their challenges, public health, health and community services, that limited access to free or low-cost bus tickets, links for low-income people is a challenge there. I know that in conversations in the past, there have been discussions about ticket sales overall with community connector services, and also with these I'm not sure what the right terminology is, but like vouchers or something that they can use as basically a ticket beforehand, and it causes a lot of confusion with some of the community connector drivers as well. Do we want to have a conversation about either cutting those tickets, the cost of them in half, or just completely getting rid of them? Because we already know that the community connectors, bus tickets don't actually produce any income whatsoever. Is that something that could help burden some of the issues with health and community services, while also tackling an issue that has already been brought up from the community connector management team as well.
Can we, it's a good question. Can we put a pin in that until we get to the community connector section? And then we can have a broader conversation about that?
I'm fine with that, as long as we keep in mind, like, why I'm bringing this up, because it is tied to, this particular aspect of government.
Agreed, yep.
Yep.
Counselor Yakavaga?
I think you don't have the question.
I do. but-
Please go ahead. That's fine.
No.
Here's his answer first. Yeah. Are you sure?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So I just need some clarification, please, between the challenges talking about increased demand on all services from maternal child health to general assistance. Greater number of immigrant refugees in our community needing services. And then reduction in GA. So how did that work?
I'm going to call up our. Oh, get the city manager or brand new.
can start some of it.
I'm gonna call the assistant.
Well, but some of that is, so, what we're seeing is we are seeing an increase in demand in GA this year. But what we had budgeted for in fiscal year 24 had sort of assumed a return to what would be, I don't want to be,
Yeah,
had returned to what would be historical norms. And what we aren't returning towards, what we haven't seen yet is a return to the historical norms. But what we are seeing is an increase in the number of individuals that we are seeing. Because of the fact primarily, I think a lot of it is all of the pandemic era relief is finally been pulled away. So we saw little bits of it coming back, but that took, because general assistance is the program of last resort, people were required, if there were other programs, to take advantage of them. So it's a little misleading, and I understand how the words aren't lining up with the numbers.
So that's why.
So we
I
are
thought-
seeing more people
Mhm.
and our costs are going up. But last year, we had no idea what to expect, so we sort of returned to the historical average.
I see now. That explains it. Thank you.
I think from the bigger picture in terms of needs and demands, I don't think there's a decrease in that at all. I think what happens is sometimes people cannot qualify for GA even though they have a need that might not be able to be filled in that way. So they're looking to other programs that we're able to offer. And with maternal and child health, that is funded outside of GA. And so that's through city funding and Maine CDC funding. And because of what we see around drug addiction and, pregnant people who are experiencing substance use disorder, those demands on maternal and child health home visits have increased.
Yeah, and that's why, because I know that the needs of at least, the people I know of, the needs are met. They are getting GA, they're
Right.
getting all of the services and,
Yeah.
but how come? That's why the numbers didn't add up.
Yeah, but what I will say too is the needs, I think our public health staff does a good job at meeting the needs. But no different than what you hear from the police chief, where meeting those needs, it isn't as simple as a GA appointment. It typically involves a conversation and some creative thinking of, oh, well, here's how we can piece this together, and we're gonna need to reach out to this agency, and here's how we're gonna piece this together by bringing in resources here. So they're becoming more complex and
And the partnerships are becoming stronger with other organizations to be able to provide those wraparound services.
Thank you.
Counselor Fournier?
You took my question away.
Okay, Counselor Tremble?
Well, I don't have a question. I just want to point out a couple of points because, we're dealing with it, we all know, but the public health department does a great job. It's great service, but so many things impact Bangor, but the regional. So when you look at the budget, some of the new councils might not be aware. This doesn't include all the grants and all the funding they get. So there's a lot more money that goes into that department. And a lot of those grants are regional. They'll cover Penobscot and Piscataquis counties and not just Bangor. So it's a huge, and Bangor is outside of the state of Maine. We're one of 2 public health agencies in the state of Maine. So it's really a unique thing that we have in Bangor, but it provides a great service to this region.
Others?
So maybe to that point, how much typically do we get in grants? Revenue.
Council Spring?
I was gonna say, did that not make it in the back? I could see him making notes.
I did request it from the department, but I didn't
We
receive it.
I did send it.
Did you?
Yes, and I have
Okay.
it here.
Oh, see?
Um,
That's fantastic. I didn't see it.
So on average, we during, and again, fiscal years are all a little bit funky. That's the best way to describe it, but close to $12 million in grants. So the city money is probably around 12% of our overall budget.
And balancing the variety of federal grants, all of which have different reporting requirements, different compliance requirements, different performance requirements is quite the juggling act. But I will also say that we are at times able to pay for what you may typically think our fixed costs are through some of those grants. So for example, one of the things we're able to do is to partially pay for your public health director's position. But what it also does is it builds capacity. So if you think about those individuals we have on staff that are really dedicated, for example, to prevention efforts. A lot of that person's, how we got those positions was through grants, but we utilize them in other public health ways. So we're able to augment what we can provide as a public health agency by the combination of state and federally funded programs and the city funded programs.
Counselor Dean?
Yes, can you refresh my memory? I know we had the conversation about the reimbursement for
Mhm.
GA.
Mhm.
Increasing to 90%, which it has not happened, but was it shot down or is it just not gone through? Is it still being?
Yeah, there is no 90% reimbursement to my understanding that was approved as part of the state budget. I believe they
It was
approved.
actually declined.
No, it's 70, correct. The legislature, is my understanding, did not adopt that.
Right, still at 70.
It's still at
Yeah.
70. Yeah. I believe that they appropriated, again, for the third year in a row, one-time money to, in essence, reimburse municipalities on a proportional basis for the amount of general assistance you spend. But I can tell you that the lion's share of that money goes to Portland.
Counselor Trumbull, did you have a follow-up?
Other questions follow up on the grants, which I think is important for Dave's late audit situation. I think is a lot of those grants, particularly federal ones, have particular audit requirements, don't they? And they
Yes.
test a lot of those.
Yes,
I mean, that's a lot of the audit work is testing for
Right,
some of
we-
these federal grant.
right. We
requirements.
essentially have two audits.
Yeah.
One is our financial audit and one is our single audit, which is all of our grant programs citywide. And they test a lot of those, all the major ones that will get a significant amount. And to date, I am unaware of any findings that they're aware of or any reporting findings that will be on the finished report when it is
So
issued.
yeah, some of those have a lot of detail they're looking for in those
Yes.
federal audits.
Yes.
And to go along with that, with the fiscal audit, it's gonna line up with the clinical audits, like for WIC, for example,
Alright.
all those things need to align.
And I think one of the big differences in, to your point about the audits of the state grants and Dave referencing the single audit, there are two pieces of the single audit. So there is the single audit that we have to comply with from a federal perspective. And then there's what's referred to as a MAP audit. And that is the state of Maine's version of a federal audit. So federal audit, major programs, generally, it's a percentage base, but none of them are under $750,000. So they're looking for substantial grants. The state of Maine threshold is $100,000. So we are doing an inordinate amount of work on a very small grant under a state provision that we aren't under a federal.
I don't have a question, just a comment, under the maternal health and opportunity earlier this year to learn more about the breastfeeding and postpartum support group offered at the library. I think that's a really great example of a low-cost, high-impact, innovative program, and really delighted to see us doing programs like that. So, great. All right, I think we can move on to governance.
Governance for those at home or at the table is the city council, the records department, which for those who may not know, that is our treasury, our city clerk, and our elections. The assessing department and the legal department, so they're all combined into the governance section. Looking at their revenues, there is a slight increase in the revenues. That is related to license and registration fees. I will point out that because you did hear me say that it includes the Treasury Department, which is excise tax and property taxes. That is not in here because it's not departmental revenues. These are departmental revenues. Those revenues we'll talk about a little bit later tonight. On the expenditure side, there again is about a $30,000 increase that is primarily related to payroll, some education and contractual services. Some of the increase on the expense side was offset because the number of elections that we have next year is just one next year. So that was a pretty good savings there. No new programs being requested, no capital plan, priorities for the departments, as always, elections, because even though we have one, we still got to do it right. Staff development and training, as we know, we've combined essentially into the records department, the treasurer and city clerk. So those staff are now currently here working together, cross training that will continue. System upgrades, the system that we use for our motor vehicle and property taxes has a web-based version that we've been moving to for a while. We're trying to streamline that and push it ahead to get that completed sometime this year is our hope. So that will be updated. The assessing department, again, same thing, staff development and training. They've had some new people. The revaluation is in process to continue with that, the outreach to the public and make sure everybody is aware of what's going on, developing frequently asked questions related to the revaluation so that trying to get as much information out to people as possible. And for the legal department, finalizing the vacant building ordinance code. And again, with turnover and new staff development and training continues to bring everybody up to speed in that department.
Thank you. Questions and comments? Seeing none. Oh, Counselor Leonard.
So one thing that keeps coming up here under priorities, and this is listed under challenges and what is it, priorities, is basically staff development, retention, training. So just to use this as a reference point, we're going to have staff that's going to start using artificial intelligence on their own, with or without city council telling them whether it's okay or not okay to do that. I think, and this is going to be echoed throughout the rest of this meeting tonight, because there's other departments that also have the same thing, staff development and training of staff. This is from an administrative standpoint, one of the biggest leaps in technology that we've seen recently, and there's going to be a large learning curve the longer we put this off. We should, for our future budget, account for training for staff. I would say all across the spectrum, but especially in administrative departments, to have some sort of training that's that has an ethical bias to it, meaning that we try to maintain utilizing artificial intelligence training as ethically as possible to teach people the best ways to use this technology to make it easier for this city to automate work that is really just busy work at this point. So that's something I would like to see budgeted into 2026 when we start talking about that. So that's all I really have to say in general for this section. But that's probably the biggest comment that I would want to leave here at this point is if that's what each department is saying, then I think it's probably the best way to approach all these departments, not just these three, but all the ones coming up, artificial intelligence training for people and how to use it specifically.
Okay.
Other thoughts? Okay, let's move on to executive.
So our executive section, that includes the city manager's office, risk and safety, and human resources. Looking at their revenues, you'll see a fairly significant increase that is related to the new homelessness response manager position. and that is being funded, with ARPA money. So that is that increase, related there for the upcoming year. There's also an increase in our workers' compensation charges that we charge out to other departments. And that's calculated based on use and we do, so it fell into being a slight increase this year. On the expenditure side, there's also an increase that again is related to the payroll, related to the new position. Insurance, our insurance contracts had a pretty good increase and contractual services as well, which includes the software cost for the human resource information system that was approved last year. That is being implemented, but we'll have the ongoing maintenance and operational costs, which is now going to be part of the operation budget of the executive department. No new programs this year, no capital plan. The priorities is continuing to update the city website. That is in process with the vendor that we selected to update the city website. Implementation of the HRIS system, continued bargaining negotiations, looking to update the personnel rules and regulations. That was hoping to get that done probably this year, but that has been extended due to the recent turnover in the HR department. But that's still on the table for us to look at and to move forward with that. Again, continue training citywide. And as most departments you'll see, staff development and training, because in nearly every department we've had staff turnover. So it can take a while to get them up to speed to what we do and how we do it.
Is the HRIS selected? Did you pick a
Yes.
vendor?
No,
No,
they're not.
Still working on it?
I added them on.
hopefully this month.
Nice.
We received seven or eight responses,
Nice.
and they're pretty hefty, so it took some
No doubt.
time to go through.
I believe you. Other question is about the online training platform. What do you use? Do you use LinkedIn Learning or something else?
NeoGov through
Oh, okay.
MMA, yes.
Great. All right, thank you. Other questions, thoughts? Concerns? Counselor Leonard.
So I'll just reiterate the point before, this is also, another departments I would recommend ethical AI training for. On top of that, in regards to the website, what I think would be really helpful, not just to workers, but also to anyone who wants to access the website. There are, current AI models where you can train an AI to, learn any existing PDF that the city has. And you can train this AI to only look at the perspective of what is related to the city of Bangor. And what I would like for the city to consider is to have a similar call it a Google page, an AI assistant page, whatever you want, something that allows any user, whether they are a city worker or a civilian, someone who just lives in the city or not even in the city, to be able to access information in an efficient manner that works with an AI that already knows this information and can not only provide this information to those individuals, but also show, here's the link to where I'm getting this information in the first place. And I'm not expecting this to happen even within the next year, but there are already large language models that are able to do this right now. For example, Google's Notebook allows you to upload a plethora of PDFs, and you can choose what the AI is to react to in that source or PDF file that you've uploaded, and it will answer your question based on what source or PDF that you've uploaded you wanted to look at. Obviously, that's a bit more of a nuanced model, but we don't have as many documents that we have to work with as Google does. So I would like to see at some point, whatever our AI assistant is, to really focus in on these documents so that anyone can be up to speed regarding anything that happens regarding these meetings. Any information that gets uploaded should already be available to this AI the moment that it's the moment that a meeting ends, for example, whatever documents that are live, ready to go to the city, it could be uploaded to this AI model. Again, I'm trying to push AI. I get it. I look like a nut, but this is the changing environment of any type of administration. You have the United States Army currently investing in this research in Alabama right now. I think it's prudent on us to try to figure out what are some ways that we can, from a micro standpoint, how can we automate some work that is busy work for us, and how can we use this technology for our workers here to work smarter instead of harder. So again, I'm going to reiterate this over and over again, but our entire interface as a city just needs to overhaul and change to adopt to this technology. That's all I have.
Okay, community connector.
So for the community connector, there is an increase in the revenues. That's primarily related to an increase in the ADA fares and the community partners' local share for the paratransit services. On the expenditure side, there is an increase there. That is related to payroll, contractual services, and capital needs, which are somewhat offset by there's a reduction in fuel and vehicle maintenance charges as we continue to update our bus fleet and all our entire fleet. There is a new program request that they are asking for. That is a new dispatcher position. This would bring the total dispatchers to 5, one being dedicated to ADA paratransit and the others to the fixed route. The hope of this position is to fill gaps in the schedule for needed dispatch, which is currently being filled by other staff and creating overtime. I believe that right now, full service operates 13.5 hours a day, Monday through Saturday. And the transit center is open Monday to Saturday from 8 to 4:30. So having an extra dispatcher will allow for better coverage time, including at the transit center, and allows staff better flexibility for training, vacation, sick time, because everybody needs some time off, and at times that can't happen when we're really short-staffed. So the estimated operating cost for that would be added to the budget if you agree to this, would be $80,131. That would be ongoing costs. Of course, that would increase each year because it would be payroll related. So any increase in payroll would increase that. So it's essentially adding a new position to Community Connector.
Mr. Schaefer?
Just, is there a number that would be offset? Like, do we know if OT overtime would be offset by a certain number to make it sort of a?
I don't have a potential of that. And my guess is Courtney or Lori haven't done that look either, but we can take a look at that.
Just wondering if it's a cost swap or if it's a savings or a true expense.
Counselor Trumbull?
I had a similar question, but the other part of my question was, did we add 1 or 1.5 positions last year? One of those was supposed to cut back on, and I don't remember what positions were, but didn't we add a couple positions in that department within the last, a year ago? 1 or 1.5 positions? I don't remember. I don't recall, I can't remember what they were.
Yes.
Some of it I think had to do with moving into the new building.
I'm gonna be looking at Lori Lynn Scott, bus superintendent over there too, to correct me if I'm wrong, but one was a maintenance position for the transit center. And I believe one was also a dispatcher also for the transit center. Is that correct?
For only half a year.
For half the year.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what you're
Well, but
remembering.
we added, but it was only impacted for half a year, but so that position is still, that we added is still already in the
Yes.
space budget we've got,
Yes.
right? So we want to have another one.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because as finance director Little mentioned, it's with the 2 locations, the admin building and the transit center. The hours that we're trying to cover and the increased demand for ADA paratransit in particular. More often than not, Lori as bus superintendent or even Sherry Clark as operations director often have to fill in as a dispatcher because there's just not enough coverage for all the days. you know, somebody calls out or needs vacation and things like that. So this will really, I think, bring the support staff where they need to be, I guess, because even occasionally, you know, a dispatcher might have to go and cover a lunch and things like that as well, so.
You fill in for Council Leonard, but I know the county with 911 dispatch, they're using AI. I mean, is there a way we can use AI to dispatch to the?
I mean, maybe in the future, but we are still, I mean, with this tech implementation, certainly, I think that's gonna go a long way. And like our dispatchers, for example, being able to track where the buses are and things of that nature. We're just paper, pencil still right now in so many ways, that would be a monumental task to take on at this point. But we do have, I think, a lot of pieces in the works.
Counselor Yakubagas?
My question is about the challenges, security and safety concerns at the transit center. So have there been incidents, specific incidents?
Yeah, I think that leads into my discussion the other night at GovOps. It is, you know, it's, Lori, would you like to come up and speak to this a little bit, to the security and safety concerns? I think she can probably do a better job than me.
So for the most part, honestly, we haven't had a lot of problems. We really haven't. We have had some, and we have had to call the police department a few times. I think we're looking for more of a police presence. So when I heard that the downtown police chief, police downtown beat guy was gonna be, put back on the, list, that made me very happy. Cause I think just having their presence, you know, even if it's just a car or bike or whatever, they'll know they're around. So I think I'm looking forward to that. Also, we are working with TSA at the airport, for some more presence of, surface transportation assistance. So that should be coming later on this summer. So for just a presence, I think that's all we're looking for at the moment. But for the most part, after operating about a year and a half, I think we're doing very well.
And I think that leads into the staff, the constant presence down there, and they're staying on top of things like clean restrooms and things of
Right.
that nature. We want to keep things up to a high standard to make sure that it is open and available for anybody and everybody to come ride the bus.
And I think with this, adding this next dispatcher, will help us down there, because right now we just have one. So if she goes to the restroom,
There's
no one there, right?
Or for lunch, somebody has to go cover.
Right,
her,
we have
things
to go
like that.
down and cover, or if we need someone to go to the bank to get change, or we have to get more tickets. It's just, you're always down there with just one person, and it's just really not.
Yes, no, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. No, but I'm glad to hear like there are no major incidents, safety or security, so.
No, I think so far we're doing well in that category, but I do look forward to the police presence of the
Yeah,
downtown.
oh, yeah,
for
absolutely,
sure.
yes, yes, thank you.
I do want to get to Counselor Leonard's question about ticket sales in our book here. What portion of the revenue is covered by ticket sales? Is that charges for service? Is that something else?
It would be charges for service, but there may be other things in there, so I don't have specifically ticket sale revenue.
No,
I'm not sure
because,
that you would know that off the top.
right, we throw in everything into fares. So whether or not you put $1.50 in the bus or you buy a strip of tickets at the transit center, it's all just fares. And that's that's how FTA requires us to count it. So that's kind of why we do it that way. We don't separate it out.
So is that 640? Is that all fares? Is that total amount? That's 640,000?
No, it includes advertising.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Oh,
say,
okay.
yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not
thank
sure.
you.
I
Thank
think
you.
advertising is the only other
Yeah, it is.
revenue that you have.
Yeah.
That sounds.
So the vast majority of it is fares.
Yeah.
It is.
Counselor Leonard?
Sure. So I guess I would just please feel free to answer candidly, or you could please correct me if I'm wrong in anything. From certain people that work with Community Connector, they seem to think that the issue of the fees being where they are, it creates a bit of sometimes chaos with individuals who will try to use, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I'm using the wrong terminology, but there are these tickets that you can get from bus drivers if you're going to a stop, but
Transfer?
yes, thank you,
Yeah.
transfer tickets. I heard that loads about, and so One of the ways that this one individual employee I was talking to was saying that a way to mitigate that is to reduce the overall value of a ticket, or to just completely get rid of the expense altogether for a fare. And I'm open to the latter. I'm not sure if that's sustainable, especially if we have to abide to certain FTA regulations, but I guess I would ask you how, if that's a way to, whether or not that's a way to mitigate the amount of work and stress on our bus drivers, what are ways that we can reduce their overall work? Only because I know that they've been kind of in a tumultuous phase going from our fixed stop bus schedule, but also with a lot of the individuals who use the community connector, so sometimes are on the lower end of the poverty spectrum. And so not just to make their lives easier, but also make the drivers' lives easier. Would that help in any way, reducing the fares, or do you think that's not, is that counterproductive?
Well, I think getting rid of the transfers is an option for sure.
Okay.
I definitely want to look at that. I know, I'm looking forward to BACS. They're doing a study on our fare structure this year. So that is going to be part of what they do look at, is what would it look like if we didn't have transfer tickets? And then maybe we could reduce the fare a little bit to offset that. But then the other side of that is this new technology that's hopefully deploying pretty soon, will help the drivers not having to, count like the way they're doing, with the denominator.
Right.
They'll be having a mobile data terminal, like a tablet that's affixed to their bus. And we'll also have automatic passenger counters. So we'll have more accurate counting through that
yeah.
technology piece.
And just for those that may not know, it's $1.50 a trip.
A trip.
Yeah.
And transfer tickets. So basically, just for those of you that don't know it as well, you would pay your $1.50 when you get on the bus. And if you pick the bus up at the airport mall and you needed to go to Brewer, you would get a transfer ticket downtown to get to Brewer, because your fare pays one continuous trip so you get to your destination.
But you have to change buses
You have to change
at the
buses.
transit center to get to Brewer from that
Right.
location.
So.
Yeah.
That's what the transfer ticket is for your continuation of your trip to get to where you need to go. And then you'd pay $1.50 for the return and the same transfer ticket to get back. Now, the transfer ticket do get punched, so you take the next immediate bus. It's not for you to go to the store, go for a walk, and then come back to get on the bus. It's for your continuation of that trip that you were using.
Okay, yeah, I'll be very interested to see what that study determines, because we want to make sure that our new bus system is as it meets as little roadblock as possible, or counselors backing up into those buses. So.
Counselor Fournier.
I was jumping over to the expenses. I know you talked about fleet maintenance coming down and vehicle fuel. So why are those coming down?
We have better, more efficient vehicles. We have some electric vehicles, and
Okay.
new vehicles require less maintenance. So every time we update
Alright.
one of our buses, in theory, those will go down. And as we move to fully electric buses, we should have some further decreases there.
Thanks.
Okay, I think we're good. Thank you.
So we didn't really get to the capital stuff. We'll do that real quick.
Oh, yep.
So they, in their capital plan, they did request, a little over $11 million. The bulk of that is, being recommended for, approval. But it's, important to say that of that, over 9 million of it is grant money. So it's not money coming out of, taxpayers' pockets. And the other ones is, we're looking at using reserve money, and money from Maine DOT to cover most of that. So the impact to the annual budget out of that 11.2 million is only $500,000. And the priorities moving forward, again, is the technology improvements that have been talked about earlier. looking at ways to increase ridership, maintain current staffing levels, fixed stop implementation, which is in process, and the rehabilitation of the cold bus barn. That's going to be the largest significant project that we have coming up, because that will be part of undertaking estimated around 9 million or plus to renovate that building.
Counselor Trumbull.
Yeah, when you look at this part of the budget, and there was a capital budget of 500,000 being impact of the budget. Is that the total budget or the impact on the city side, part of the budget? Is that the total bus budget or just what impacts the city?
That is what impacts the city.
Okay, so it's really close to, because we pay, what do we pay? Well, 50-something%, and that's
61.
61, so that's only 61%
It is,
of it?
that's the total amount.
Okay, so we'd be paying 61% of that 500,000.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay being corrected.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I thought, I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, now I
Now
think we
we're
can move. Thank you.
Next department is finance. That is financial services, the city hall building, central services and information services. You'll notice on the revenue side, there's, a big increase, but that is related to the grant writer position, which is also being funded by the ARPA money. That position is filled and is currently looking for grant money. On the operating side, on the expenses, there's again an increase related to the payroll for the grant writer position. There's an increase in our maintenance contracts for computer software and hardware, which is partially offset by a reduction in some of our utility costs. And there is a new program that we have put in. This would create a new staff position as well, or in our information services department. As we become more and more upgraded with technology in today's world, it becomes harder and harder to operate and maintain that technology, particularly in the area of cybersecurity, monitoring our networks and making sure that everything is locked down. And as we move more things to the cloud, it becomes more expensive to do things. So this position would add a new network database security analyst that would work out of the IT department at City Hall, and would assist with all departments, but also be ideal to help with cybersecurity needs at currently the airport. We're undergoing a cybersecurity upgrade there now that is being required by the FAA and the TSA. But those cybersecurity needs are going to very quickly move to other types of target areas, which are public utilities at the treatment plant and public transportation, which will be community connector. This position, our hope would be that we find somebody that has some additional cybersecurity training to be able to help with those areas, and make sure that all of our network is being locked down and watched and monitored on a regular basis. We currently do have one network position, we have one database position, we have one tech position that's here, and then there's a tech position that is dedicated to the airport and a tech position that's dedicated to public safety for police and fire. This would add a second one here to help monitor those networks and make sure everything is streamlined. In our capital budget, there is for City Hall, 875,000 was requested. We are recommending funding for 775 of that. That is mainly related to our current renovation. Part of that is new furniture that we will need for the first floor when we move back, and for continued staff relocation for being here in this building. What we didn't include in the city manager's recommended budget is the repointing of City Hall, because we were looking for alternate ways to fund that, which we have now discussed at the last meeting to fund that a different way and get that project done. Currently, the information services department had a roughly 515,000 of capital request. We are recommending funding All of that, most of that is coming from reserves, some of it from unassigned fund balance. The impact to the taxpayer mill rate is only 95,000. And our central services department had requested a new piece of equipment, but we are not recommending that being funded. It's more of a convenience at this level. So anywhere we can save money, we save money, and we're not going to recommend that at this time. Our priorities going forward is obviously in finance is to make sure financial statements are issued on a more timely basis. Continue with our new grant writer, our new procurement coordinator, our purchasing coordinator. Is to get, again, staff development and training, get everybody up to speed on our processes. Continue to update the current policy, which we've done recently for community connectors needs, but there's still some work to be done to segregate out airport needs, CDBG needs, and just overall update it to current purchasing standards and sort of mirror what is more at the Fed or state level so that we're at least up to date with modern purchasing requirements. City Hall is to, again, maintain quality standards here and provide the service that we need to our customers while we're relocated. And continue to monitor the renovation progress. As John indicated at the recent Finance Committee meeting, as of right now, the process is on schedule, which is good. We still got a ways to go, but as of right now, things are looking good. Information services, upgrade the citywide software firewalls. That's an ongoing process with some outdated equipment that we have. Replace the aging infrastructure, expand our fiber connections, and that includes expanding our redundancy system. We do have partial redundancy at the police station right now, but that does not extend out to some of our other departments, Public Works, the airport, Health Community Services. So we do have a project in place to run fiber out to those areas, so that will make a complete loop. So that if City Hall, which is the primary hub, goes down, it will spin up at the police department, and all buildings of the city will be able to maintain operations out of that backup server location. So that's a process and a project that we have currently ongoing, hoping to have that completed this year. And central services is, again, looking at ways to expand what they do in that department. Streamline some of the workflows. As Councilor Leonard has mentioned several times, most of the process right now it's somewhat automated, but it's mostly a manual process to get in work orders, complete the process, and submit out things. So looking for ways to enhance that and streamline the services in that department.
Councilor Trumbull.
Two questions, one on the capital. What did you say the 100,000 was in there to repoint City Hall? Did you say that's gonna be? I know we've reallocated. Did we put that 100,000 towards the bigger repointing, or did that go away?
It was initially in the 5-year capital plan but we weren't recommending it, so it's not in there at all.
Oh, okay, it wasn't in there at all.
So-
Okay, so my question is, one line is the 500,000 is for new furniture for the first floor. My only point I was gonna make was, I think we need to not have everybody else go into old offices. I think if we need new furniture on the second and third floors too, we ought to spend the money and make it so everybody's going in a nice new office when they get back there, not just the people in the, it's my opinion, just might just be me. I think if everybody's been relocated for a year, it'd be nice if we come back in, new offices, if it's needed, new furniture, new curtains, new, everything new, if it's needed. I mean, I don't think, in the scheme of the building, that's not a huge expense to have it, so it's. And
I'm glad to hear that, because
in my opinion.
Yes, some painting, new carpet.
Right,
And some people had newer desks, but there are.
right,
that are
some,
still-
the ones that need it.
fairly old.
So my only other question, I'm trying to remember what it was, I made a note. Yes, please. I didn't make a note. Oh, I did make a note. Oh, on that new position for the IT,
Mhm.
is that something that we contract with agencies to do that, or do we, is there a way to? Seems like I don't know anything about IT, but it would almost seem like you could contract somebody to do it for a lot less than 112,000 a year, but again, it's not my area that I know anything about.
I will look into that. I will talk with our IT director. Yes, you can contract out for IT services. And it's just a matter of, I guess, obviously whoever we did go with, if we did that, there's still some concerns that you need to let that outside party into your system where keeping it in-house, you're more locked down. But obviously, if that's what they do for business, there should be an adequate protection there. So I will look into that and we'll report back.
Counselor Fournier?
Just looking at wages and FTEs. I realized there was a swap there between governance and finance. But when I look at wages over the last couple of years and we're hiring the new person, shouldn't that come down? And when I look back at governance, it's pretty much stayed level. So I'm comparing when I look back at 2023 to 2025.
You think the numbers are wrong?
Something's wrong.
Right.
I'm not.
I get 24 numbers
Yeah, but I'm
because
not
you
sure 24.
budget for it,
I'm
but,
not sure those are right.
okay.
I don't think they took treasury out.
I thought we had approved that last year.
You did, but what the city manager is indicating is the formulas that create these pages may still be picking up treasury because of the division number that they
okay.
have.
And that's
I
what's
can-
kind of
Yep,
skewing.
so I will check into that and we'll report that back.
Fewer people, but it's more money.
Yeah, there might be more money because of the hiring of
Right, it's
the additional person.
with additional person, so there's
Even though it's
there's-
ARPA money.
right, it is ARPA money, but it would be reflected in the wages as
Right.
that, at least one additional position.
Right.
Right, but the FTE is going from 17.25 to 12, so you have 5.25 fewer people, but
Correct, which is why I at the moment believe the city manager's indication is right, where 24 should not be 17.25 because Treasury moved to the records department last year. So that should have been 12 last year as well,
Right.
instead of 17. So we'll have to look at those numbers to see.
okay. But then my question is the jump between 23 and 24, where again, if you lost 5.5 people, but your wages went up, why? So
Part of it is,
Part of the
right,
whole
part of it is part of it is hiring. A lot of the new staff, in order to get qualified staff, came in at higher up on the scale.
okay,
Then,
The numbers are right. So the wage numbers are reflective of the operations above, which are City Hall, Finance, Central Services and Information Services. Because that's an automated. The FTEs on the bottom are a manual process. So the numbers are correct as it relates to wages, but I believe all of these numbers below should be 12. So I don't believe there's any change in FTEs reflected in these numbers.
that makes far more sense to me.
okay.
Thank you.
We will confirm all of that. and report back.
Yeah. Counselor Yakwaga, did you have your hand up?
It was just a small question about utilities. How come it's going down? Is it the change like from the city hall that's under renovation to this building?
Part of it is, a small part of it is that, but it was, the drop is based upon actual electric bills that we've been paying for the last year. I do realize that it looks like a significant drop, but that was based upon actual usage. And so it seemed appropriate to make that change.
Now, when we go into the new building, that, it looks like that heating system is gonna be much more efficient than
Yeah,
what we've been
that's-
using, so.
That is our goal.
and did we have a dual system? Was it natural gas? It could be backed up by oil or
Yes.
strictly oil?
No.
And now we're just strictly natural gas.
Strictly natural gas, yes.
And for those of you who weren't there, the original boilers, I think, were about the size of two of these enormous tables put together. And the two that are in there now are about the size of your fridge at your house. So just a complete difference.
Yes.
In,
We have a lot more room in that.
yeah, right. Have a party in there. All right. Other questions, comments?
What do we see, yes?
Counselor Leonard.
Obviously in general, AI training development, so specifically actually under information services. Upgrade the city's productivity software, this is under priorities.
Mhm.
Upgrading the city's productivity software to Office 365. So there is an option to have as an add-on Microsoft's artificial intelligence Copilot with Microsoft 365 as well. This might really help in conjunction with under central services priorities, continue to streamline workflows while maintaining quality of work. So if the city decides that they want to use the artificial intelligence Copilot associated with Microsoft's Home Office 365, that's an AI that you could work with to develop more streamlined workflows by making city approved prompts that will automate certain types of work that can be done instantaneously. So in offline, I can show you some examples of things that I've consulted people to use for prompts for their own fields as well, reducing the work by at least 50%. So more than happy to show you how that works. But if that is something that the city's going to be doing, it would probably be best to train people on Microsoft's artificial intelligence Copilot at the end of the day. That's just gonna be the most streamlined one.
Okay.
Counselor Schaefer.
Just to follow up on the AI stuff, I mean, AI is here, I teach it in my class, I teach it to future teachers, I use Microsoft Copilot to do it. And I also try to teach them and point out the ways that it is just not infallible, and I think Councilor would agree. So for instance, one of the things I did just weeks ago was say, ask for 5 articles on AI in the classroom, and Copilot comes back and says, here, 5 articles on AI in the Copilot, Article 1, Article 2, Article 3. So any furthering of AI is not a, here's AI, have fun with it. It absolutely needs training, and you need to understand how it works. And so you'd want to make sure you include some professional development in there to make sure that if you are deciding to rely on AI, that somebody knows how to read it back and understand what it's putting out, because there's still a lot of room for growth in artificial intelligence. And I would not want to hand over all of my city services to that without a lot of professional development and training and education.
Counselor Fish.
And I agree with both Councilor Leonard and Councilor Schaefer that AI is here, but also in my profession, and we have family in medical. I know they're using it a great deal, but those professions and maybe our own staff, as they've gone to training and on a national level, I think organizations kind of look at the AI and customize it so it's more effective for city municipalities or real estate or education. So I don't know if the training we're sending our staff to is already developed some suggestions of how municipalities could use it. But I think rather than doing it ourselves and just, saying, let's get something, there must be something already established on a national or an educational level that we could maybe look at to customize.
Hi again.
I heard footsteps, so.
Sorry, I was talking to Laura, so I came in a little late, but to your point, I went to a training recently where AI was a big part of it, and actually municipalities are like woefully behind, right, in paying attention to AI. So like even MMA, who we rely on pretty heavily, is just starting kind of to get on that bandwagon a little bit. So there's really not like a guidebook or a lot of resources in terms of how municipalities specifically could use it to do things like the busy work, the admin level stuff, simple things. And, you know, I think there's a lot of reluctance simply because so much of what we do requires like a face-to-face sort of conversation. That's what a lot of our customers like and enjoy, things of that nature, especially when you're in smaller communities. You know, the town office is kind of the hub. They're the people behind the desk often know what's going on in the town, you know, so it's like its own thing, but yeah, it's definitely on our radar. I think, we'll definitely continue to pay attention to it. I think there's actually a technology conference coming up by MMA soon. And I think as we, you know, our website will incorporate, you know, sections that'll have the chat window robot and things like that. So I think, it's safe to say we're not as reluctant to, about it as some municipalities are. But we're also kind of behind the curve in a lot of things. And so until we can kind of catch up and things like getting the website updated and things like that, I think will help us move in that right direction. But I will admit, it's certainly a lot.
Yes.
And fitting it in and around our day-to-day jobs and responsibilities as they stand right now. It's also a little daunting, quite frankly. But it is on our radar. I think that there's an appetite for it. And certainly I, for one, will be keeping a close eye on what other municipalities and MMA and organizations like that have for resources available to us and how we might be seeking to implement different programs and options and trainings and things of that nature. So,
Thank you. One thing I would add as well, I share the enthusiasm for AI in general, and I use it in my work. One of the places I think we need to be cautious and thoughtful about is the use of AI in people-related processes. There have been lawsuits for, you know, companies who've gone headlong into AI evaluating candidate interviews and resumes and how that perpetuates bias and discrimination. And so, while I think it's great for a lot of things, to your point, there are people-related processes and face-to-face interactions that AI can't compete with yet. Maybe in the future, but it will be great as you keep your ears open to hear what you learn and how other municipalities are adopting it. I would imagine that it will be a topic at NLC, if not next year, in the upcoming years. So we'll be able to learn from other municipalities across the country, but certainly potential for a tremendous amount of application.
absolutely.
Okay, where were we? Finance? Any other questions before we move on? All right, let's go to planning, development, and code.
So you'll notice again, a similar theme. There is an increase on the revenue side related to a new position that was created, the housing rehab coordinator. That is being funded with ARPA funding, so that money shows as a transfer in. There's also an increase in permits, as well as the anticipated short-term rental fees. That short-term rental program just rolled out last week. And on the expenditure side, again, there's an increase that's primarily related to the new position, as well as increase in the contractual services. And that includes the annual software maintenance agreement for the new program that is tracking the short-term rentals. There is a new program that is being requested, which is Placer AI. It is a program that will use and provide foot traffic demographic information to the city for people that come, where they came from, where they go, what they did while they were here. And the thought is that program not only for development to be used, but also for Parks and Rec and other departments as well, that information may be helpful to the city with traffic patterns and retail trends and how to develop the city going forward. The operating costs for that for fiscal year 25 is estimated to be $24,000. Ongoing cost would be determined at the annual cost of that program on an annual basis. No other capital plan, for 25 is, being, submitted. Development priorities, again, business retention to keep businesses in Bangor. The rental registry, pilot program, pursue funding for and help develop housing projects. Again, staffing development and training is most of Ann's staff is new. Code enforcement, the enforcement of our vacant and placarded properties, and look for ways to improve their efficiency and workflow. A lot of their process has been manual, so the rental registry, the short-term rental program that we bought is certainly going to help them, and we're looking at other ways to help streamline their processes as well.
Councilor Bernier, we think.
Yeah, it was more under the challenges, development, staffing vacancies. Is there
Actually,
vacancies right now?
there are no vacancies right now.
Okay, so this was written before.
Yes, it was before
Yeah.
we filled all the positions.
Just wanted to make sure.
We're fully staffed.
I need to do some research on Placer.ai. Sounds interesting.
Mhm.
Is it, I'm assuming it's not an app that people have to opt into, or is it they just using like location pings off people's phones or?
My understanding of the program, and I will let Ann come up and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is yes, if you on your phone or your mobile device have it set to ping you or track you, this program will do that and then report to the city that say that, these people were at Cascade Park. And they were there for 2 hours and then they went downtown and ate at a restaurant down on Main Street. I'm not sure how much that is really going to be detailed, but in my head, looking my own research into Placer.ai, that was the information that I got, was that someone would have to sort of have that turned on their phone. It's not, monitoring everybody that has a cell phone that's walking through the city. But if your phone is set to allow that type of tracking, then this program would pick it up and provide us with the demographic information. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct, yes. Yeah, we're really excited about being able to use this in planning, economic, all of our divisions, as well as other departments.
Is it the kind of thing you have to opt in? So I would have to download the Placer app and say, please track me for my city, or is it something that you're just geting data
Public
from
data.
cell phones?
Yeah, data from cell phones.
So the reason why I ask is that I wonder if it would also be able to be used by, like public health and tracking our homeless, like, hey, there's all of a sudden a ton of pings from cell phones in a new area. Is there an encampment that we are learning about? Or if it can be used not just for economic development, but also just for general
Right.
Yes.
data. like
Right,
that.
I think our expectation of the uses will probably expand as we see the data come in. But any phone that has that service turned on would provide us with that. And so suddenly we see.
If you have like
Why
your
are there
own
20 cell phones in this clump of trees? We may want to go take a look.
Yeah, if this were to be funded, we would, once we're trained on it, we'll open that up to the other departments to train them for them to use. So this would be something all departments would have access to.
I think that sounds like a great thing, and if we fund it, it'd be great to have a report back on it.
Yeah, definitely.
Only other comment I'd make on that is it might be interesting for things as we think about public transit.
Yeah.
Being able to know where people are coming from before they get on the bus, maybe there's an opportunity to expand or adjust routes so they're more convenient for people. Or just sort of seeing where they go when they get off the bus. Like, again, maybe there's a way to optimize our routes so that more people would ride, or that it takes less time for them to get from A to B.
It
There'd
would
be
be
some really
good,
interesting
yeah,
applications.
to get some commuter data like that.
Yeah.
Where are people coming from? Where are they going? How are they getting there? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Dan's Placer data is about to show him in the building.
Track me, see where I'm heading.
From just a
Right.
ignorant perspective, would you have to have your location device turned on?
I would
For that.
imagine.
I'm
I mean,
guessing
it
it's probably
couldn't-
like if you have location services turned on in your,
It wouldn't be accessible if you didn't want it to be.
I think that'd be on the individual phone users.
And a lot of people just don't know what they have on there anyway, so, like me.
I'm guessing it's similar to like Google Maps, the way they can tell if there's traffic in an area is because enough people have their phones on and they can tell how fast people are going and all of that.
Okay.
So my guess is it's aggregating that data, but
So for example, there's a study that was done by the Maine Department of Transportation that uses bus traffic data, and they get a lot of that data from cell phone use, and that's just public information.
But I mean, there's an app called Life 360 that a lot of parents, I have it on for my daughter for when she's driving, and there's a new feature now that says like, they just turned on, it says, dangerous drive. And so it turns out that what happened is that all these parents were getting notices that their kids were doing a dangerous drive, and they're like, they're at college, they don't have a car. It's because they're on the bus and they're texting on the bus. So the app senses you're in a moving vehicle and you're texting, so this is real risky behavior.
Wow.
But they're like, no, mom, I was on the bus, figure that out. So it's, I can see it being the same kind of.
Mhm. Thank God that stuff wasn't around when I was a teenager.
all right, let's go to miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous, so this is sort of some of the little odd things that don't fit into other categories. On the revenue side, this is an increase in the use of reserves for the pension debt, as well as we have a new credit enhancement agreement. The transfers in are money from related to the credit enhancement agreements that we have and in the downtown area. On the expenditure side, there is our debt service. There's a slight increase there. We do anticipate doing a new bond issue this year. There is the TIF districts, our pension bonds. That was the unfunded portion that Maine State Retirement told us we needed to pay. That is coming to an end fiscal year 27, I think. That will no longer be in the budget. And there's an increase, as we know, in the county tax of roughly $427,000.
Councilor Cornier.
So on the capital improvement program, arena debt service, it's going from 1.3 to 1.5 and 25 to 26. I thought that was kind of stable.
My guess it was how it was scheduled out, but we will talk about the capital improvement for the TIF district next week. So I will have an answer for you next week.
Okay, great. And village partnership, I just see that as a bumpy road over the next couple of years, and that's all what we anticipate happening.
Yes. It's, my understanding is the project is moving forward, but this is, putting money.
Yeah. The same.
I heard the move.
See, now you can actually hear me. So a lot of the fluctuation you see in a couple of these, for example, the debt service for the arena and the downtown initiative is what we're trying to, so the TIF district throws off about $4.2 million of revenue. So we're trying to kind of equalize what we project over the next 4 years. So it doesn't, you don't see it anywhere except here.
Mhm.
So it's just trying to equalize some of the expenses across, which is why 1 year you'll see the downtown partnership at 175,000, because we know we've got, larger items that we need to pay for that year, or other items that we think we may need to pay for in the out years. So we're just trying to manage projects.
All right. And the last one I had was just that Kenduskeag Extreme trail lighting. For some reason, I thought
You do already have money for Kenduskeag Stadium trail repairs,
right,
and that's going out this year. So we've been accumulating money for several years.
all right.
Yeah, both for lighting and for trail improvements in general.
Okay. Thank you.
I have one question, the Bangor Public Library increase, is that related to the new position that we funded?
That is, yes, that's their overall increase in their budget. We'll talk about the library next week. No,
Thank
2
you.
weeks from now will be the library.
Okay,
And they'll come and do a presentation if you choose. But that is their overall increase in their budget. We had been carrying some additional funds that they had paid back to us that we were using to offset some of these increases each year. That money ran out last year, so we're
Right.
seeing the full impact of the budget increase this year. Where in prior years, it wouldn't have been that significant, but we're now caught up and unfortunately with payroll and everything else, they're seeing the same increases that we have.
thank you. All right, general revenues.
General revenues, this is, as I mentioned earlier, where we have the broader income that is typically on our books shown under in the Treasury Department division, but it's citywide impact. Excise tax, we have budgeted for an increase in the excise tax. Excise tax is always a little bit of a dangerous number because at any given year, everybody could decide not to buy a new vehicle and our excise tax would take a significant hit because of the way the mill rates are and the difference between a first-year vehicle and a second-year vehicle. So far, that has not occurred. We continually see an increase in the collection of excise tax. And what helps to supplement that is the rental vehicles, the companies at the airport. They register a good portion of their vehicles here in Bangor. And that is a good portion of that excise tax. So we continue to provide them with this best customer service that we can. Because they do have options. They don't necessarily have to do it here other than their agreement with us locks them into a certain amount, but they've all the companies typically go way over their contractual amount with us because we try to do quick turnarounds for them and for convenience. So we will continue to do that. Revenue sharing, based on the state's projections, there is an increase in revenue sharing from 9.9 up to 11 million. Our state reimbursements, that's the Betty, the homestead, there is a slight decrease there. That is based upon the Phil's numbers. So as he gets closer to having more final numbers, that will get adjusted as needed in relation to homestead and other exemptions. And then the rest is just in charges and other, that's franchise fees, our pilots, which are payment in lieu of taxes, and interest earnings, interest charged on past due taxes. And we're seeing a slight increase in that as well.
Councilor Corner.
Interest earnings on past due taxes, not interest earnings.
Interest earned on banking money and interest paid on past due taxes. That's combined in that
Yeah,
number
the
along with that.
interest
Yes.
It just seems light to me. I'm looking back at 2023, we had 600,000. But interest rates have gone up considerably.
Mhm.
We are currently under a banking contract
Tied,
that has locked us into an interest rate at the time we signed was very good. And the
So when does that-
economy has switched.
yeah, so when does that
Um,
up for renewal?
I had a note to look at that before tonight and I didn't get to it. So I will look at that and see when our banking services expires, but we had a very lengthy contract. So I think we still may have a few years, but I will verify that.
And I think at this point, we're on the side where, yes, we're falling behind, but again, for approximately 6 years, we were earning 150 basis points more than anybody else.
Right.
So, not that that makes you feel any better.
No, it doesn't.
I know it doesn't.
'Cause,
I
yeah,
know it doesn't.
it's a lot more than 100 and.
It is, the spread's different now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Other comments or discussion tonight? We are adjourned. Thank you.
So I was just gonna say thank you for doing the work on the school.